Welcome, everyone. Welcome to Talk About It Tuesday with the wildlife team of the Sierra Club. Happy Wolf Awareness Week. This is the 31st year of celebrating wolves in our state and promoting wolf education. This was signed into law by Tommy Thompson back in 1990 and yet is as relevant as ever. Our focus today is to provide a quick state of the pack of wolves. We'll start with what's going on nationally and then bring our focus back here to Wisconsin to get an update on how things are going on the development of the DNR's Wolf Plan Management Plan. Then we will quickly wrap up with how you can help wolves. Let's get started with Jody Haber-Sinekin and the National Pulse on Wolves. Jody, to you.
Well, thank you very much. And hello and welcome, everyone. We're so happy that you're joining us today and are as interested and engaged as we are on how things are going for wolves, not just in Wisconsin, but nationwide. I received yesterday from the National Sierra Club expert on the state of the nation as it pertains to wolves. And it really was helpful because there are some important dates coming up that all of us can kind of keep our eyes on the newspaper and our news feeds to get a sense of it. But let me just hit three primary areas for you to stay tuned on. As many of you are likely aware, in fall of 2020, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service finalized its decision to strip federal Endangered Species Act protections from all United States wolves, except for a small Southwest population which had been listed separately under the Act. This wolf delisting rule went into effect across the country, the lower 48 that is, including Wisconsin on January 4th, 2021. And right then and there, 6 conservation organizations, including Sierra Club National, represented by Earth Justice, filed suit. The lawsuit asserts that removing protections from wolves is unlawful because wolves haven't yet recovered from their historic range, citing in support peer-reviewed evidence and science demonstrating that a mere 6,000 wolves occupy less than 10% of their historic range in the lower 48 states. And this lawsuit has been going on. They've been pulling together their briefs and information and affidavits and the like. But the update that I learned yesterday, which is interesting, and that in just a few weeks, on November 12th, there will be a court hearing of this delisting rule litigation, and we should hear some news, or at least an indication from the court of where things are at with that. So fingers crossed, that's really important. As we will hear from Diane and others, where things are happening in Wisconsin and the rest of the country, it is my sincere belief that we need wolves to be relisted again and under federal protection if we are going to have any sustainable populations, given where things are at the state management level. So this is critically important, that bit of litigation, excuse me. The second main thing that update that I think folks will be interested in on the national stage has to do with the dozens of American Indian tribes who have asked the Biden administration just a few weeks ago on September 14th to immediately enact emergency protections for gray wolves, citing to the aggressive management practices of states. Sadly, Wisconsin was specifically named, given what happened in our February hunt with the extreme exceedances of that hunt in the middle of breeding season. They also pointed to Montana law, which allows hunters to kill up to 10 wolves each and allows private payment for dead wolves, similar to the bounty system of old, as well as the Idaho law that passed in just July, which allows hunters to kill up to 90% of that state's wolves. And the things that's going on there is ecocide. So not to make folks upset about that, but I assume that you're hearing what's going on in the Northern Rockies. So the update, interestingly, again, is that on October 29th, there has been a meeting scheduled between tribal representatives and Secretary Deb Haaland. You'll know, or you'll read in this letter that the tribe sent to Interior Secretary Deb Haaland, that she is a member of the Laguna Pueblo in New Mexico, and she's the first Native American to lead a cabinet agency. And they are asking that she, in her role, relist the wolf on an emergency basis for 240 days to ensure immediate protection. That, of course, would encompass Wisconsin's hunt coming up. That would encompass what's going on in the Northern Rockies. And finally, you may have also heard in the news that the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service recently announced that it will be conducting a status review of the Western United States wolves and have opened a public comment period. Sierra Club National informs us that they will be planning a national alert in November, which we will be sure to pass on to you and other Sierra Club members and the public at large. And there's actually one additional point that I see that I included, was that there has been a notice of intent to sue filed by Earth Justice on behalf of several groups, including Sierra Club, again, to sue Montana and Idaho's governors, directors of state fish and game departments, and commissions in light of what is happening in those states vis-a-vis wolves. So there's a lot going on at the national stage because of how dire things are nationally and of course in Wisconsin as well. So just in hearing all this, I will be glad to answer questions if there are those at the end, but you can really see how Sierra Club National is in on everything in terms of conservation and protection efforts for wolves, for which I feel very grateful. So it's not just all that we're doing at the state level, which I know that you're aware of, but also at the national level. So that's really cool to hear and to see for ourselves. So thank you for the opportunity to present this to you.
All right, I'm going to jump right in then, and I'm going to give you the update on the Wisconsin update. So my name's Amy Mueller. I'm humbled to share space with you all today. Thank you so much for caring. The Wisconsin update is, as Jody mentioned, it's a little bit complex as it has been with other states, but what makes it a little bit more unique is that we have this law on the books that said if the wolves aren't specifically on the Endangered Species Act, if they're not protected federally, we must have a hunt. So with that law already being on the books, we kind of got Wisconsin was kind of in a bad place when they became delisted, essentially, as Jody mentioned, on January 4th. So what happened was the DNR got that news here in Wisconsin and said, we'll have a hunt in November. And some of the more extremist hunting groups said, but wait, there's still time now. And so they essentially filed a lawsuit here, and they were able to force a very rushed Wisconsin recreational wolf hunt that, sort of made headlines around the world for just, how despicable it was. So just to clarify, that hunt was labeled the 2020 wolf hunt, even though it took place in February 2021, but it was attached to a season that could have started in November of 2020. So they had 3 days here in Wisconsin, which really blew past the quota. It was 83% over. So that equates to 99 additional wolves that were killed that were reported. We know that there were a lot more, but that's the data we have. And, because of the timing, we just have a ton of questions still about essentially how many wolves are left in Wisconsin. We wonder, how did this affect the pups and the breeding season? How many pups survived? There's been a lot of research done out, and the wolves are out doing howling surveys, trying to see if the pups call back, and there just have not been many. So we're worried about that. We're worried about the health of the remaining wolves. What has this hunt during the breeding season done to them? So that's kind of the past, that's kind of the history. I wanted to start there because I know we're all kind of on a spectrum of understanding what has happened, because it's been complex and confusing. Now, what we know right now. So from April through October, we know there have been another 68 wolves killed in Wisconsin. They've been removed due to that allowance of lethal removal with farmer conflicts. So that's pretty devastating because that's a whole nother wolf hunt in and of itself that's taken place relatively quietly. It hasn't gotten a lot of press, but I think that's important to note. So we know 218 wolves were killed, if not more, in 3 days in February. And since then, another 68. And what the department is getting ready to do is move forward with another planned hunt. This is going to be termed the 2021 hunt, which definitely leaves a lot of controversy there because ultimately these seasons are legally supposed to be held November through February. So they're going to start the hunt right away in November of 2021. And they have a licensed quota approved of 130 wolves. Essentially, the Ojibwe tribes are allowed 56 of that 130. So that leaves the state licensed hunters and trappers 74 wolves to kill starting November 6th here in our state, which is just devastating, again, on top of the numbers that we do know. So the upcoming recreational hunt, it's concerning for a lot of reasons. Hang with me, it's kind of dark, but we have some hope. I'll get there, so don't leave me now. So it's concerning because this is only months apart, right? Any animal coming off the endangered species list and being hunted twice in a matter of a few months is concerning. Also, it appears especially irrational and aggressive when compared to our Great Lakes neighbors like Minnesota, Michigan. They are not having any hunts this year. We're moving forward with 2, and they don't have any plans for next year. So I think that really gives a good contrast to what we're seeing here in our state. Additionally, it's very concerning the number of licenses allowed. So they're allowing like 370 some licenses with the hopes of only harvesting or killing 74 wolves. So this does seem common sense that this is sort of ripe for another great exceedance of that quota. So that's concerning. Just the amount of hunters on the landscape, hunters and trappers that will be out there, that's a lot. And then not to mention the regulations, I printed them, I read through them. It's not for the faint of heart, I will tell you, because there's not much that isn't legal here in Wisconsin. And I think our friends in Northern Rockies can relate. Night hunting, electric calling, baiting, trapping, cable restraints, hunting with hounds. That for us will start November 29th. So it doesn't start right away like it did in February because we have it built into state law that it waits until the deer gun season is done, then the hounds can be used with the wolves, which is probably one of the most, barbaric methods allowed in the United States, and essentially is, dogfighting. And then we have a long lapse of time. So the time a wolf is killed between when they are required to report it is 5 o'clock the next day. In the world of immediate gratification, they're posting those pictures on social media, but they get plenty of time. And we know it's been publicly published to push those limits, to keep zones open for as much, wolf killing as possible. And then lastly, these zones are open, and they when they close one zone, all of the hunters that still have licenses can flip to the next zone, which creates just this huge influx of pressure on that next open zone. And like we saw in February, some zones get overhunted by like 265% of their quota because of that. So, okay, that was dark and I'm sorry, but I want you to know what we're all fearing. There is hope. There's 2 court cases, and beyond even what Jody mentioned, we know there is a federal court case, being held with the Ojibwe, and we have lots of hope for that. So October 29th, cross your fingers, hold your breath, and hope for that. They have an injunction, and we're hoping that they are successful in getting that, or they have a request for that. And then also we have a state level lawsuit moving forward, or will be heard starting here, I believe Thursday this week. And so we're hoping that they are successful in seeking their injunction, So we're going to hopefully stop this hunt one way or another, but it's going to be a nail biter. So it's dark, but there is hope. And with that, I will hand it over to a legend in our wolf advocacy here, Diane Kane, who's one of our Sierra team members on the Wolf Management Plan Committee.
Thank you, Amy. Well, I was thinking, you've all heard about the 2022 Wolf Management Plan Committee, but maybe you don't know who is part of that or who was invited. So the DNR roster includes organizations and agricultural ranching organization. It totals 29 groups. That's a lot of people coming together and discussing things. So the tribal and government groups that were invited to participate are the Bad River Band of the Lake Superior Ojibwe, the Great Lakes Indian Fish and Wildlife Commission, also Red Cliff Band of Lake Superior Ojibwe, the Stockridge Munsee Community, the Forest County Potawatomi Tribe, the Lakota Ray Band of Lake Superior Indians, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, U.S. Forest Service, USDA Wildlife Services, the Wisconsin County Forest Association, and the Wisconsin Conservation. And these groups had to apply. So starting Safari Club International, Bear Hunters Association, Bow Hunters Association, Chapter of Backcountry Hunters and Anglers, Trappers Association, and Wildlife Federation. Then the Wolf Advocacy and Education Organizations. And of course, Sierra Club Wisconsin chapter is part of that, as is the Great Lakes Wildlife Alliance, Humane Society of the United States, Wisconsin, Timber Wolf Alliance, Wisconsin Greenfire, Wisconsin Conservation Voices. And finally, the agricultural ranching organizations, all Wisconsin based. That's the Cattlemen's Association, Farm Bureau Federation, Farmers Union, and Wolfbacks. So each organization has designated a primary and an alternate representative. Sierra Club's primary is Jody, and I'm an alternate. The purpose of the 2022 Wolf Management Plan Committee, from here on in, I'm going to reference it as WMPC, is to have input into a wolf plan that determines the management of wolves for 10 years. That is 2022 to 2032. That's a very long time for a predator that has a fragile population. The WMPC meets 4 times July and through October. Our final meeting is October 21st. The final product of the committee will be a report containing the work completed, the items discussed, list of ranked inputs, also known as staff drafts, and updated wolf management plan that considers the WMPC's work, wildlife science, public input, the WMPC and public input on the draft management plan is gathered in February of 2022. Then they'll update the plan again. Then a revised draft management plan is presented to the NRB board, and that's in June of 22. Then another time, the WMPC process has included goals for each meeting, meeting pre-work. That takes 4 hours about to complete prior to each meeting. The meeting topics, the meetings themselves are 6 hours long, and then there's post-meeting work. The DNR stated they're not focused on the number of wolves, but rather key principles and objectives that they're trying to achieve. However, at least 9 of the organizations within this roster have stated they wish the wolf population to be 350 or less, as per the 1999 management plan. The current carrying capacity is felt to be right around 1,200 wolves. The WMPC we were advised legislative change recommendations cannot receive consideration because the DNR does not make legislation. So this would include recommendations regarding revocation or revision of Act 169. Some refer to it as the Wolf Kill Bill because it mandates a yearly hunt, allows hounds, bait, night hunting, and trapping, including cable snares. Our final meeting is, as I said, on October 21st. It asks for the degree of support on nutshells from all of the organizations I listed. It's about a 2-hour survey monkey. It asks each group to list our top 5 out of 26 nutshells that we were given to choose from. Sierra Club chose 5 nutshells, but decided to add some verbiage to better explain our stance, which includes coexistence, respect, non-lethal measures, sustainability, and an increase in regulations within the constraints of the existing Act 169, because we want to promote ethical and fair chase hunting practices if there has to be a hunt. So each organization was also instructed to weigh in on wolf management zones and then articulate why we chose one of the 6 options. So to end, I have to say we have been grateful for the opportunity to speak for those who have no voice, the wolf. And thank you very much.
And that is our update. There is so much going on across the country and here in Wisconsin, as you have heard. This is your chance to advocate for wolves. Please go to our Add Up page to urge Interior Secretary Holland to immediately reinstate protections for gray wolves. We have a templated letter ready to roll. You can simply add your contact information and your personal comments and send it. I believe that the page, our colleague Elizabeth is going to be putting the link into the comments. It's addup.sierraclub.org/campaigns/Wisconsin Wolves. Reaching out to Interior Secretary Holland is so critically important. In fact, we have a couple of team members going to march in Washington, D.C. this Saturday to get the Biden administration's attention on how important this issue is. Sadly, Wisconsin and many other states like Idaho and Montana, as we've heard, have proven that they are not responsible stewards of our wolves with the incredibly aggressive hunts they've authorized for an animal that has just come off the endangered species list 10 months ago. So your time and your letters are critically important. The more people and the more voices, the more likely we're able to get our message through. Thank you so much for your efforts. I've been Marcy Kearns. Have a great day and enjoy the rest of Wolf Awareness Week. Thanks, everybody.